News!
Okay, we'll start with this. You may have heard last week, Naoya Inoue versus Junto Nakatani is planned for May 2nd at the Tokyo Dome. The fight appears to be on course. Arguably the biggest fight on the schedule has a working date and location, as Jake Donovan reports that undisputed super bantamweight champion Naoya Inoue and former 3-weight world champion Junto Nakatani is targeted to take place on May 2nd at the famed Tokyo Dome. Arguably until something bigger comes along, though rest assured, just because it's in the Far East doesn't mean it's not big. It's necessary to highlight that due to what is the rampant American exceptionalism and xenophobia towards all things foreign, that unless a boxing match is happening in the United States, it's not a big-time boxing match. You're sorely mistaken. This ain't your father's era of boxing where foreign fighters are limited to coming to America for big-time purses. This is a big one. This would mark Inoue's second appearance at the Dome, having previously welcomed Luis Neri back to the land of the rising sun with a vicious knockout in May of 2024. It would also mark his longest layoff since that event. The monster fought 4 times in 2025 alone, knocking out Yi Jun Kim and Ramon Cardenas before cruising to decisions against Mudajan Akhmadaliev and David Picasso. He stated afterwards that the workload was wearing on him, so it's not surprising he's giving himself a bit more time to recuperate. The rest will certainly be welcomed by Nakatani, who ran over the undefeated David Cuellar and Ryosuke Nishida in his first fights of 2025. Before narrowly escaping the relentless Sebastian Hernandez in Riyadh. He fought through some serious swelling in his eye, but appears to have avoided significant injury, and now he's on course to take on his contemporary, his countryman, the Monster. This is not just a clash between pound-for-pound talents, but a battle of elite finishers whose styles play into each other's weaknesses. Barring something truly special coming down the pipeline, this has a strong chance of being the unmissable boxing event of 2026. Boxing done right. 2 elite fighters, unbeaten, both in their prime, getting it done in the land of the rising sun. The difference you see between foreign fighters and American fighters. Foreign guys are making fights while Americans are arguing over what color nail polish they're going to wear to the fight, or who gets a nicer fruit basket in their dressing room the night of. Absolutely ridiculous. In reference to the fight, Junto Nakatani's trainer admits they need to be way better to beat Naoya Inoue, better than they just were against Sebastian Hernandez. Coach Rudy has presided over Junto Nakatani's entire pro career ever since the Japanese fighter first handed him the training keys in 2013. Despite all of the accomplishments they've achieved together, titles in 3 divisions and pound-for-pound ranked status, while being named 2024 finalists for Fighter and Trainer of the Year, Hernandez admits that Nakatani needs to level up as he prepares to fight Inoue this spring. We have to be way better on fight night when we fight Inoue. There are certain things that we can work on, and hopefully it works in our favor, Hernandez told The Ring. Am I sensing an apprehensive tinge in the tone of Coach Rudy Hernandez? I don't know if people are seeing it as 50-50, 60-40, 70-30 kind of fight, but we have to be better than Inoue. We have to find a way to beat him. We're not looking to run, we're looking to win. Hernandez recently helped lead Nakatani to a UD against Sebastian Hernandez during his super bantamweight debut as part of the Ring 5 Night of the Samurai card in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. Nakatani survived the second coming of Julio Cesar Chavez Sr., as labeled by Rudy Hernandez, to secure the hard-fought victory, although Nakatani endured a severely stiff test to the surprise of some. Hernandez warned not to put too much weight into that performance. So inclined to agree. While Sebastian did make Junto look more human than anybody else has, Inoue fights nothing like Sebastian. Sebastian Hernandez and Naoya Inoue are 2 completely different styles for Junto, he said. Inoue is not as big or as fresh as Sebastian, but don't get me wrong, I still think Inoue is the best fighter in the world and #1 pound for pound. He's still on the top of his game. He's one of the most consistent champions in boxing history. He's still making history, and he's not even old yet. At 32. May seem a tired old cliche that you often hear in the sport that styles make fights, but it's absolutely true. That's why you hear it so often. Sebastian made Junto struggle, but Inoue fights nothing like Sebastian, so it's a different fight
entirely. How is Junto Nakatani going to topple the toughest test of his career?
Junto just had the fight of his life, Hernandez laughed. Inoue is a special fighter, but so is Junto, and in his last fight, Junto showed that he doesn't crumble and he fights until the end. I'm not even kidding around about Junto catching Inoue and dropping him so that he can be beaten. We can't be predictable, or else he'll time and catch Junto, and when Inoue hits you, he's a pretty solid puncher. Inoue looked like his dominant self yet again by defending his undisputed junior featherweight titles against Alan Picasso, with a unanimous decision to set up the super fight against Nakatani.
You had to wonder that Junto, looking as human as he did, didn't take the air out of the tires for the Inoue fight, that he looked the most beatable he's ever looked with Sebastian, so that him looking beatable makes it easier to envision Inoue beating him.
Does that hurt the fight?
I think that Team Inoue and Mr. Ohashi in particular, were sort of non-committal to doing the Nakatani fight next up until they saw how Junto looked with Sebastian. I think that nudged them in that direction, and at the same time I think that was a humbling performance for Junto Nakatani and his team, who seemed supremely confident that they would stop the monster. Now not so much.
I don't see a knockout for Junto, but I think we'll beat Inoue by decision, said Hernandez. We'll beat Inoue by rounds, maybe 6.5 to 5.5. If we happen to win by knockout, wow, how awesome would that be? I'll keep my fingers crossed for that to happen.
Not so confident going into the riskiest fight of their career, where before Rudy used to say that if they knock down Inoue, they'll stop him. Now he's saying you can't bank on a knockout. Still going through with the fight anyway, in spite of the risks, because the rewards are equal to them. This is the biggest fight Junto can have anywhere at or around these weights, and the biggest fight in the history of Japanese boxing. That's no over-exaggeration.
It's definitely one of the bigger fights on the calendar in terms of scale.
I believe the Tokyo Dome seats about 50,000 at a time, so that's a big fight.
I said it before and I'll say it again. Watching Junto and Inoue back-to-back on the same card in sequence, not because Junto struggled with Sebastian, but because I got to see them both in succession, Junto and Inoue.
Leaning towards the monster.
There was just a noticeable difference in the sharpness and accuracy of the two fighters, the speed and snap on the punches of the two fighters. You could see the difference in class, at least I felt like I could, in Inoue and Junto.
So maybe Rudy Hernandez and Team Junto are not that happy with their performance. In truth, Team Inoue aren't that happy with their last performance either. They felt they should have been able to get rid of Alan Picasso. Inoue certainly dominated him. He won practically every round, but because he didn't knock him out, and he admitted that he tried to,
they're not happy.
You're gonna have two teams, two esteemed professionals, working meticulously in the next few months on their plan of action for the May showdown.
I wonder if there is going to be any involvement from Turkey LL Sheik and Riyadh Season, because this time, unlike any other time we've seen these two fighters fight, we had to pay extra.
I didn't like that.
No, sir. And that is a direct byproduct of Turkey's involvement, whereas before, we used to see their fights free of charge as part of Top Rank's deal with ESPN. The hope has got to be that by the time May gets here, Top Rank will have sorted out their broadcast situation, and they will deliver us this fight at the ideal site for it, in the land of the rising sun, the Far East. This is going to be an early morning show, which is less than ideal for a pay-per-view. It makes absolutely no sense to charge an American audience $60 to $80 for a pay-per-view at the crack of dawn,
like Turkey just did.
At that time of day, you're not going to get an American audience to fork over any money. So the best thing to do, for the sake of the card and its exposure on a global stage, is to bill it as a regular fight.
For the big fat fucking bowl of nothing you're gonna get trying to bill it as a pay-per-view, you may as well give it away as a regular fight, as part of a regular schedule, because at least then more people are gonna watch it. But if you charge extra,
no ROI. No return on investment.
Not a good idea.
So I wonder if Inoue and Junto have any remaining ties to Top Rank, and will Top Rank continue to deliver us their fight as part of whatever their broadcast deal is, assuming that by May, they have one.
Let's hope.
Hitchins, Duarte is on that card. Have you re-signed?
No, it's not. I don't believe it's done completely, but I'm not sure if that fight's on the card. We haven't been involved in those conversations.
So you haven't re-signed Richardson?
No, we haven't. We were working with him to get him on the card, but DAZN, again, things happened in the past, decided they didn't want him on the card, they wanted Keyshawn Davis on the card. And that's what happened then. Let's see if DAZN want him on February 21st. Listen, we've got Dalton Smith. If he wants to unify, he can fight Dalton Smith at Hillsborough.
Talk about your textbook case of burning bridges before you've crossed them, or in this instance, while you're still standing on them.
Richardson Hitchens was not yet in a place where he could afford to stand alone and try his hand at free agency, marketing himself to whoever's willing to pay when the only ones willing up until that point were Matchroom. Or did he forget that Mayweather Promotions, where he stood for a long time, left his career in limbo to die on the vine up until Matchroom decided to rescue it and, in effect, him, putting the money in his pocket, guiding him to an alphabet title.
Going as far as letting him headline his own show in New York when they know this guy can't draw a bath. He can't draw flies to shit. You know what? I should have got a headline fight. Liam fucking Bottle. After he beat Subriel Matias in Puerto Rico, they should have had him headline a show in Australia. Get that guy a homecoming fight. They get Richardson Hitchens a homecoming fight, and what does he do? He burns him.
DAZN's not happy, according to Eddie Hearn. I don't blame them.
They didn't want to use him on the Stevenson versus Lopez undercard for, I think, more reasons than one. There is his base style to be addressed, that you're not going to turn anybody into a boxing fan by showing them a Richardson Hitchens fight. He's got that pure boxer-based style, fence and fiddle, move around, pot shot, only one at a time. It's not exciting.
Even if it works.
It's like a McDonald's cheeseburger. It does the job, but you know there's something better out there. They decided to go with Keyshawn Davis for the Jermaine Ortiz fight.
Keyshawn's more exciting.
Even if Keyshawn is more unstable, more temperamental.
They didn't want to use him.
Want to use Hitchens. They didn't want to bring him back on the platform. So you figure that, in spite of his base style, if he would have signed an extension with Matchroom, they would have used him because Matchroom still would have had an obligation to promote him and get him fights. But in the absence of that, there's no sense in wasting resources on what is not a fan-friendly fighter with a fan-friendly style, a guy who don't sell tickets. No loyalty either. You might have heard it said before that loyalty is tantamount to a 4-letter word in the sport of boxing, that if you want loyalty, get a dog.
This boxing.
This is a business where everybody is always looking to better deal everybody else. The promoters, the fighters, the managers, everybody.
So then why should DAZN and Matchroom expect loyalty from Richardson Hitchens?
You know, in the greatest scheme of things, maybe they shouldn't. But once it's established that they shouldn't.
You fucked up.
Don't you notice that they're spending a lot more time and attention on what they spend their resources on when they put pressure on Boots and Virgil to fight each other? They don't want to keep paying for filler fights.
When Eddie Hearn said that, Devin better go get Turkey to pay for the Crocker fight because they're not going to kick out that money.
Or this. When DAZN doesn't want to use Richardson Hitchens on the undercard of Lopez versus Stevenson, instead, they go with Keyshawn Davis. They're spending more time and attention on quality control and where their resources go. So that if you make a decision to stand apart from the people that got you to the title, which is the only thing of value you have, you better make sure you're on stable ground when you do it. Richardson Hitchens didn't do that. Textbook case of burning bridges before you cross them or while you're standing on them.
Matchroom was still the bridge between you and everything else in the sport. Without them, you're at the mercy of the elements. They say that they're negotiating an Oscar Duarte fight for Richardson Hitchens for the undercard of Garcia versus Barrios.
Not a good style matchup for Richardson Hitchens, and he'd have no protection going in. Oscar Duarte is the Golden Boy Promotions fighter. Is that what he's reduced to?
Looks like it.
Eddie Hearn did offer him a Dalton Smith unification match, which Dalton Smith can use to circumvent Alberto Puello, what's supposed to be his mandatory challenger. Let's talk about that for a second. I said it in my post-fight recap. I don't like the Puello fight for Dalton Smith. I don't really like the Hitchens fight for him either, because both Puello and Hitchens are movers, are boxers.
pussyfoot fighters.
I don't like either of those fights for Dalton Smith. He could lose. If he can, wait out the situation involving Richardson Hitchens and Oscar Duarte. Maybe see if that fight gets made. And if Oscar Duarte wins that fight next month on the 21st on the undercard of Garcia versus Barrios.
Unify with him.
Fight him. Fight Oscar Duarte if Duarte beats Hitchens. Duarte is much closer to the guy that Dalton Smith just fought than Hitchens would be. Hitchens is a taller, longer guy. He's going to make himself harder to find, harder to hit. He's not going to engage. He's going to run. Oscar would do the opposite. Oscar would do what Subriel just tried to do. Come forward, throw punches and bunches, mow you down.
Fight Oscar. But I tell you something.
The thing about fighting Oscar, if Oscar beats Hitchens for the belt, Eddie has to then negotiate with Oscar. Oscar De La Hoya.
Shit.
Remember, Oscar Duarte is one of Oscar's fighters. He's a Golden Boy Promotions fighter. And you see how well the negotiations between Boots and Virgil are going. How would the negotiations between Oscar and Dalton go?
There are difficulties there to be addressed. Maybe it's a situation that Dalton Smith should wait out to see who ends up with the red and gold title. But I prefer a Duarte fight to a Hitchens fight.
I prefer a Duarte fight to a Puello fight.
Dalton Smith stands a much better chance of becoming a draw across the pond than Hitchens here in America or Duarte anywhere. He's the money.
It's the truth.
You can take him back to Sheffield, have him fight a guy, build him up a little bit before he goes into a unification match. A hometown defense in Sheffield likely does better than what Richardson Hitchens did boxing George Kambosos here in America in what was a homecoming fight.
Back over to Hitchens.
I understand that in previous eras of boxing, there were all these horror stories about how the fighters were often underpaid, mistreated by the powers that be. But that stuff's ancient history. In today's day and age, it's actually the fighters and their teams that are often looking to take advantage. It's always supposed to work out to where they make more money.
Please stop playing these guys a violin.
Money they're not good for, money they don't generate. To the fighters and their teams, it's really not about leaving anything behind, it's about making off like a bandit. That's their perspective in negotiations and when dealing with promoters.
Where was the career of Richardson Hitchens before Matchroom came into it?
People holding on to antiquated sentiments about who promoters are in the sport right now, when near as I can tell, Matchroom is the only reason anybody even knows who this guy is. They're the only reason he even has a title, and that's the only thing he has of value.
Matchroom.
And you betrayed us.
So I don't hold it against Matchroom or DAZN at all if they hold back on using Richardson Hitchens on any of their shows. Why should they?
You betrayed us.